Patrick, I'm gonna go ahead and make you a co-host right now. That way you can share your video, share your mic, and then you'll be able to jump on here and we'll let you take it away because you got a really cool presentation that I'm really excited to hear about, all about SIP panels and building tiny homes with SIP panels. So if you can hear me, Patrick, love to. There you are. You're jumping in here right now. Awesome. How's it going,
All right,
Patrick?
good. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Jason. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, for sure. We're really excited to hear what you have to say. And sorry that I glitched out right when we were doing the transition, but
If
thank
that's
you
the
so
worst
much.
of the day, you're in good shape.
True, 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 true. Awesome. Well, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm going to let you go for it. I'm going to jump off the screen here, and then yeah, you can just take it away. So.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, I'll open up my slideshow here. Okay, just tell you a little bit about myself. I built my first tiny house back in the 70s on the back of a 49 Dodge flatbed truck. And more recently, during the Depression, I helped 40 people build tiny houses, design them and build them out of structural insulated panels. And it was one of the highlights of my career. Okay, get this slide to work here. Okay, doesn't want to do it. Let me stop sharing for a minute and see what's going on with the slideshow. There we go. Okay, well, when you're doing your tiny house, I always tell people to start with the big picture. And if you're a couple, I encourage you to talk about your drivers. And what that is what is the impetus for what you're doing and some of the major things you'd like to see in your project. Um, it doesn't always, they don't always jive. So it's good to write them down, talk about them, and find a common ground for them. The other thing is this is a little bit different than baseball. We start with the majors and move to the minors. It's interesting that a lot of times people start out with, well, I've got this cute little sink that I want to put here, or grandma gave me this little cupboard I want to put there, but that's not the place to start. You want to start with the big stuff first. Some common mistakes I've seen are buying the wrong size or type of trailer before you even have a plan. Same with the windows. I had a client that I helped, and she had already bought 4 or 5 windows, and they didn't really fit the design, but she wasn't going to let go of them, and we crammed them into her design. It could have been better. And then the other one I see a lot is wanting too many windows. A design guideline is about 15% of your floor space should be in glass, and not much more unless there's a big reason for it. Okay, looks like I'm gonna have to switch back and forth here to get this to move forward. Yep, there we go. Okay, so the most important elements when I start designing with people is where they want the front door. My favorite's on the back. The next is on the right-hand side. It depends on whether you're traveling or not. If you are, you do it more like an RV. If you pull up alongside the road, you want to get in and out on the safe side, not into traffic. Reason I like the back door is that no matter where you park it, if you have somebody says, yeah, you can park it, but it's next to the barn, and then turns out your door's on the wrong side. Bathroom location is important. And what I try to do, because we're balancing the trailer, is bathroom on one end, kitchen on the other. Just seems to work better for the balance. And then the other big one is the roof line. What do you want it to look like? So kitchen is a big one. It can take a lot of time to try and figure out what you're going to do there. So again, this is where starting with your drivers. Are you a professional cook? It might look different than if you like takeout. But figure out what you need ahead of time rather than just taking what people give you and doing something with that. Bathrooms, it's just a shower, a sink, and a toilet. How hard can it be? But I do find people struggle with this a lot. It can go round and round and round. The toilet especially is a big one. We're going to put it in the system, or are we going to have a composting toilet? Big decisions, and it depends on a lot of factors. The trailer needs to be strong, but it also needs to be light. I was at a tiny house get together in Portland, Oregon one time, and a fella came in with his brand new trailer design, and he was all excited. But it was weighed about 3,000 pounds and was built to carry a excavator or a tank or something. It was just way heavier than it needed to be. When I started working with tiny houses, first thing I did was went to several different trailer manufacturers and asked them about their designs. And one of the biggest things is most utility trailers were designed where the load went over the main frame. Where with tiny houses, we extend them out and we have a cantilevered load on each side. And none of them had done any engineering about that. So I ended up designing one and working with a couple different engineers to get it where we wanted it. Another big thing I find with trailers is how it's attached to the trailer. And the other big one is condensing pans is what I call them. And that's a metal pan underneath the floor. I understand we want to protect the underside of the house, but if anybody's ever worked on an antique RV trailer of any kind, almost always the first thing you have to do is tear the floor out and rebuild it. And that's because they had a metal pan on the bottom. What that does is condense water and release it back into your floor system to rot it out. DOT compliant, Department of Transportation. You want to buy one that has a VIN number. Most of the people I helped in the Northwest here bought a trailer and they licensed the trailer and then they built their tiny house on it. And it was a trailer with a load. And it did not try to get RV recognition for their unit. So here's some parts of the design that I worked out with the cantilevered. I went through a lot of different trailer manufacturers. This one used a C-channel across. This one used tubes. We even did a couple with fifth wheel, but several different ways to do it. Okay, let's get building. Then the question is, with what? Sticks and studs, steel studs, structural insulated panels. I even saw one trailer or tiny house show we did, someone building a timber frame on it. So stud constructions, readily available, fairly easy to learn. You have a little bit of thermal bridging where you have a stud every time, and air tightness can be an issue. So one of the biggest things I see is way overbuilt. When people go to build a tiny house, they think they're building a regular house. And all the materials that are on a wall are designed to carry the roof load. And in a tiny house, if you do the math, it's around 200 pounds per linear foot, which is minuscule. This could have been a 2x4 on edge, one of them, and same all the way across here. Another thing they do from the house industry is double top plates. You only need one, especially when you're lining up afters with the stud below it. Just several places. Looks like this almost has a double bottom plate too. And corners can be just a couple of studs. Doesn't need to be real complicated. The metal straps here, there's no problem with that. But once it's sheathed with plywood, they're irrelevant. That's what the sheathing does. And I like the one on the inside here, the stud to keep it square. That's always a good idea. Steel stud. I like it, but I used to be a sheet metal worker. And as a kid, I played with erector sets. But for a lot of people, that's overwhelming. But all the parts and pieces are numbered and easy to figure out where they go. With SIPs, it's a ready to assemble package. All the windows and doors are cut out. You can order it with the lumber already installed around the windows and doors, or you can just add it yourself. It goes together. This particular build was a day and a half with a crew that mostly had never built anything. I think there was one of the brothers that had some construction experience, but I would say most of the people we helped had very little. One of the most fun one was a gal from South America, and of course they do metric, and so we did find a tape measure that had both, so she and her husband could talk about the same dimensions. The big thing is pre-planning. You can make adjustments with this system, but it's better if you get it right from the factory. The big benefits: airtight assembly, minimal thermal bridging. A 4-inch panel gives you an R15 insulation value, and we use them for the floor, the walls, and the roof. So you have reduced energy demand, better indoor quality, less waste, fewer materials. Here's a SIP shop drawing, and each section of the building. So here's a floor panel with the fender cutouts already done. The roof panel, this one had a skylight in it. And then down here on the wall panels, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 panels down the side, one on each end. In fact, I like to build tiny houses on wheels, 8 feet 9 inches wide. Of course, then when you have your trim, you're about, you can get up to about 9 feet. In the western part of the United States, it takes a $10 permit to move it when it's oversized like that. No markers, no flag cars, easy to do. And most of the time, these don't move a lot of times. So you get a little bit more space, and it doesn't take much to be able to do that. So closing in from the weather, what should you use for roofing, siding, windows, and doors? I'm a Craigslist proponent, but it does slow it down sometimes. Roofing, one of the big things I see, people, this is a good pitch on this roof, probably a 612, maybe a 312 up here. And metal roofing is designed to do that, but much below 2.5 or 3, metal isn't the best choice. Asphalt shingles are heavy, and they want a 3 and 12 pitch also. Flat roofs are very low. TPO is the best choice, I think. It's what they use on commercial flat roofs, kind of like a pool liner, real heavy, fairly easy to work with. It's hard to get a small quantity of it, but if you find a commercial roofing contractor, they can usually cut you some off of one of their big rolls. EPDM is another rubber type material used on commercial roofs. I like TPO because it does come in several different colors. Siding is a big one. It's going to make a big difference in how your home looks. Plywood is easy. Little tiny strips of wood, a little more difficult, more expensive. I like metal, but again, I was a sheet metal worker for years, so it's easy for me to work with. A little bit harder for a lot of people. Windows. Lots of options. Vinyl is the big one in the US. Fiberglass is better. Wood is nice, and wood with cladding is super expensive, but I find them on Craigslist used, and it can be a place to start. Again, one of my pet peeves is way too much glass. What happens in a small space like this with this much glass, they easily overheat, and then there's very little R value in the wintertime. Big section is the plumbing, electrical, gas lines, and HVAC. Plumbing, you break it down, water in, water out. Supply is fairly easy. So in this one, we stashed the tiniest little water heater. I think it was a 6-gallon in one corner of the loft. And this is a air admittance valve, so you didn't have to poke a hole in a roof for the waste side. Gas or electric is a big one. Gas works for instantaneous water heaters. For electric, it works for the sink, but it doesn't work so good for the shower. Most water is fairly cold. In our area, it's 45 degrees. And to get a big enough electric to bring that up to 120 for a shower would take all the electricity you have in your building, and even then it might not do it. So gas is a good one, or like 120 electric and store a little bit. Filtered water, if you are on the road with it and moving, it's nice to have water filter for the inbound side. And then are you going to split it for gray water and black water? Is a composting toilet the right answer? Could be. I like the separate type for the composting toilets. Electrical can be overwhelming for a lot of people. I started doing electrical work in 7th grade when I learned to do parallel and series circuits, and have done electrical most of my life. But lots of questions that you need to answer, and that's one of the things about being your own builder is you're going to have 10, 20 questions a day that you have to find answers for. And it's important to be one step ahead of your project if you can. If you use the NC 119.5, the park model code is which I use for all our builds. They use the National Fire Protection Agency electrical code. The rest of the world uses the National Electrical Code. They're pretty similar. And in most places, if you're having someone inspect it, if you do it to this code, it'll work fine. One of the big areas I found to be an issue is the pedestal. I've had more people have problems because the pedestal wasn't wired right, or loose connections. One gal lost a refrigerator because of a loose connection out here. To me, I get excited when I see this, but not everybody does. So even with my build, because I hadn't been doing wiring in a few years, I had it all lined out, had the panel where I wanted it, and invited an electrician over for $100, and he went through it all with me and gave me some tips. The gas system. Oh, are you going to have small tanks on the unit? Or are you going to hook it to a permanent gas line at the property where you're at? The park model code requires all new steel or copper lines for gas, no used stuff from Home Depot, from Craigslist. The ANSI 119 does have a nice section on gas piping and how you need to do it. Nina, warning. Seriously, if you haven't done plumbing before, get some help. Heating, ventilating, air conditioning, gas or electric. When we're designing our own tiny house and helping other people, most of the time I encourage them to go all electric. It just makes life simple. When you show up, you plug in and everything's ready to go. A lot of things depend on your climate. Are you in Maine or are you in Florida? It'll dictate what you might want to do. Mini split heat pumps are a great option for tiny houses on wheels. 120 models are readily available, easy to install. Wood heat is romantic. It's hard to find a heater that doesn't put out too much heat. It doesn't take much to heat up a tiny house. Make your house a home. Simple's good. More life, less stuff. Can you do it yourself? You bet you can. I've helped, like I say, 40 people with their tiny houses on wheels, and it's probably the most exciting thing I've done in my entire career. Seeing people do things they didn't think they could to rise above what they may have been doing before. And my wife and I, Jill, we wrote a book to help people do this. Really simple, 100 pages. Every chapter covers one of the things we just talked about. The picture on the left is the tiny house that we built for a model home when we were traveling around between the tiny house shows. And that's all I have. I'm going to switch back to screen here and get back on Zoom, I hope. There we go. Okay, left some time here for some questions. And see what we got here. I don't see any. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Tammy. Yes, the name of the book is Building Your Movable Tiny House. Let me put that slide back up here. I'll go ahead and share again. And then here's, yep, it doesn't want to work there. Get over here and I'll put up our website. Okay, maybe I won't. So our website is Artisan SIP Plans, and you can purchase the book there. I have it as a PDF, or you can buy the soft cover one there also. I'm back. No, I don't make my own SIPs. They're made by national companies that have literally millions of dollars in testing and machinery to make them. I'm in Vancouver, Washington, and a company I've worked with a lot is Premier Building Systems. They're out in the Tacoma area and also have a plant in Montana. But SIPA or SIPS.org, SIPS.org is a national association, much like the RV Manufacturers Association, and you can find lists of manufacturers there. Yes, windows are important. Again, not too many. Yeah, I'm going through the questions here. Overheating is the big reason for not too many windows, and energy lost in the wintertime. SIPs don't have studs in them. They're just OSB on both sides and EPS foam in the middle. Again, this would be a good place. And to answer your questions, I would go to sips.org. Lots of good information there about how the panels work. I've done hour and 2 hour presentations just on those questions. So beyond what we can do today. Thank you, Tammy. There are chases, a round hole 1.5 inches that go through the panels to run wiring through them. And then you can also do what it's called a soffit, or along the bottom or the top, where you can run the wires inside those. Electrical boxes are just cut in on site after you have it together and you know where you want your electrical. I like to use a round hole saw, makes it real easy to do. 4 1/4 inches, I think I used. And then the boxes are a rework. So they have little tabs that turn out, or a tab on the front you screw to the OSB. Yeah, and cinderets are fine. They do take power, and I don't know how much. I'm sure if you go to their website, it'll tell you how many watts of power it takes. But I don't think it's too much. I know lots of boat people use them and like them. Okay, let me see, go back up here and see if I missed anything. Okay, I think that's about it. And I'm assuming Jason will be back in a second here to hand off to the next speaker.
Hey, Patrick, I'm back.
Okay.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing all about SIPs. I think it's really important for people to kind of know the options. I was curious, on average, do you know what the price breakdown is of going with SIPs versus just normal construction?
It's going to be a little bit more expensive up front. Energy savings on the back, time savings. What I always told you was, let me help you do the heavy and hard part. To me, that's the part that a lot of people lose. I had a friend up in the Dalles, about 100 miles from me here, and he made his living just buying projects that people didn't complete, and then finishing. That a lot of them were in that framing stage, and they just couldn't get beyond it.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because that's definitely, especially going DIY, that's probably one of the big hurdles to get over is being able to make sure that your structure is nice and sound. And how do you generally do like hold downs attaching your SIPs to the trailer?
Sure, that's a big one. When I first started, a couple of the companies were starting at the same time had 4 bolts to hold the whole house to the trailer, and I'd done enough work to know that wasn't sufficient. That's a class 1 hurricane is 65 miles an hour. And nobody would drive their tiny house down the road at 65 miles an hour, would they? I've had tiny houses pass me at 75 miles an hour. You better have it bolted on well. So the way it works is that we have the bottom plate is sitting on top of the floor panel, and a bolt goes through that into the trailer frame. And my last designs, we ended up with putting an angle iron flange on the outside, so you could bolt it anywhere you wanted to along that flange. And then again, I use the ARC model code, and it tells you how often you need to do that.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Good stuff. Well, I really, really appreciate your time today. And I think today is a really special day for you as well. So, yeah, well, congratulations on that. And happy birthday, I believe, right?
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
There it is. There it is. Yeah.
Did your research.
Yeah, that's right. So awesome. Well, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time. We'll be in touch. I think it'd be cool to do kind of a deeper dive into all the SIP stuff with you in the future if you're up for it. It'd be a lot of fun. So yeah, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, good. This is sort of a foray back into the tiny house on wheels world for me. It died at one point, and I took a full-time position with the SIP manufacturer. So
Okay.
I left that a year ago, and I'm excited to get back and start helping people with their homes again.
Yep, love that. That's really cool. Really cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Patrick, and we'll be in touch. And yeah, really, really appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Bye.